Hi, this is the Audio Farmers, and we're here at Greg Wilson's house, and we're going to find out, well, what he's all about. Ready? So what inspired you to start DJing back in the 70s?
Well, I mean, I'd always been, since like the kind of 60s, I had an older brother and sister, and they were, like buying all kind of old 7-inch singles, Tamla Motown, Stax Atlantic. It was all like soul stuff then, and obviously like the music that was around me. I lived in a seaside town, and like fairgrounds, playing all that kind of great 60s pop.
Back in the days when Guy Called Gerald was dancing, say, to you, DJing, would you say there was a lot more energy and vibe in the clubs back then as today's clubs?
Right. I mean, this is a question. This is something that's kind of put to me in many respects. I often get, so somebody will say to me, because they use the term party now for nights, and they'll say, what were the parties like at Legend? And I'll go, they weren't really parties. It wasn't this hands in the air party vibe. It was a much more intense. It was much deeper kind of. It was incredible. It was, I'll never experience anything quite like that, because it was in with the social conditions of the time. The majority of people coming to these clubs being black, living in Thatcher's Britain at a time when there was the unemployment, that they were getting racist abuse on a daily basis, that they were getting stopped and searched by the police, that the schools were shit, that there was no jobs. It was a hard, bleak time, and people needed a release, and that was their release, music and dancing. So it was such an important thing. And even like people say, what drugs did they take? And you'd say, well, they didn't really take drugs as such. I mean, black people at that point, chemicals weren't a part of it. It was only herbal. You didn't see any cocaine like in these kind of clubs or anything like that. And obviously because you can smell, like draw and stuff, that if they're having a smoke, they'd have to be like really shady about it, because if the doorman could smell it and saw them, they were out, and then they couldn't get back in, and that was a disaster. Yeah. They couldn't get in. I mean, I heard like a story that kind of sums it up in a sense, and it was a couple of guys from Birmingham, and he was talking about Wigan Pier and coming to Wigan Pier, and I saw them like a few years ago, and they said that the first thing they did when they got to Wigan Pier was siphon petrol off another car. And what happened was that they only had enough money to get the drive one way. Wow. So and enough money to get in the club. A lot of people didn't drink anything. They drank tap water. Wow. They didn't have the money. They got in the admission, drank tap water all night and danced. And it was so important for them to come down that that's how they did it. And that's the level of it. That was the dedication. And the energy on the dancing. I mean, you had like cruiser dancers who challenged each other. The level of dancing was, you don't see that level now. It's gone. It's a shame. We don't see it. We used to see some incredible dancers, that kind of went somewhere down the line. And this is before breakdancing and everything. The challenges used to be in a style called jazz fusion, and Gerald danced that style. And so it was like an intense scene, a serious people, into the most cutting edge upfront music coming straight out of the States. I mean, what I was playing in Legend was all, I mean, the majority was imported. The other stuff would have been promos, British promos. I mean, and that wasn't about being elitist. It was just that they were so ahead of the game, with regards to the music, and the dancing was a different world. Just ordinary dancers were brilliant, It's just the brilliant ones were just like phenomenal, and so, you just had this, and the culture built around dancing, and it was a release. They needed that. Without that, I don't know how they could have got the release in life, because the day-to-day life was such a kind of struggle. I mean, we've got to take into account as well, this is directly following the riots in 81, I mean, a lot of the people that went to Legend and stuff were involved in the riots, and it was a generation of kids who Gerald is a part of, that they were like second generation. A lot of these kids, their parents had come over, they've been invited over after the Second World War to help put the country right again, and just been abused like completely from the moment they got here. But the kids of these people they didn't play that game, and it was like, nah, we don't, you know, we're not taking that shit. We're here. You better get used to it. People say to me things like, did you have any problem being a white guy with? And it was like, well, no, racism didn't work that way around. It only worked like white to black. There was no racism that I ever encountered from black to white, apart from, you know, when people, you know, people were abusive, and then, you know, woe betide, it would explode on them, you know, you know, and in many respects deservedly so, because, you know, I would have hated to have been in that position myself. And so, yeah, you were part of, it was a social, it was like a cultural, social situation that you were involved in. Me being a young white guy from an area that has very few black people, but growing up with a love for black music, which I don't know why or how that came about, but I felt it, you know, and within the lyrics of those great soul records, you know, there was something that resonated in me and made me feel, you know, and understood, you know, had some kind of empathy with the struggle, although you can never put yourself in the place, because, you know, I think the thing was that if you're in a situation, I mean, there was the famous, you know, like quote from they used to, like in the 50s, put up in the windows, like in places they wanted to rent, you know, no Irish, no blacks. And, you know, that was like a thing. But if you were Irish and you kept your mouth closed, you fitted in because of your white skin. If you were black, there was no escape. And that was the kind of pressurised situation that had happened there. And that, as I say, played itself out in the clubs in terms of a vibrant release, but you know, a serious energy. And so, as I say, it wasn't a party in terms of everyone smiling, hands in the air, but it was an amazing thing, and it was just wonderful for me to be a part of. And that's why I feel so strongly, because those people who I totally respected, that they respected me, that hit deep, you know, that was like, you know, a strong thing. So all these years later, to see that they were being kind of left out the history, it's wrong, you know. And so, you know, I feel a personal obligation to do everything in my power, and because, you know, fortunately, as I say, that I kept archive material, so it's not as though I'm coming with a theory. I can back it up with factual information. It is there, you know. I mean, you know, it's like documented, but it's just like it was documented in place. It wasn't in the NME. It was in Blues and Soul and Black Echoes and places like that. You know, it wasn't in the white rock press. There was a specialist black music press. It wasn't in mainstream kind of white radio. It was in specialist shows like Mike Shaft on Piccadilly, like Stu Allen and people like that. And so it was there, but you know, that the people that were writing about the kind of dance culture post like '88, they were only writing about it from a certain perspective, and I think that a lot of the people that did write about it were coming from an indie background, who discovered dance music from that side, and really weren't a part of the black scene at all, so had no knowledge, you know, or experience of what went on there.
Farmer Tays had to go off to go and milk a cow, so Farmer Chester steps in. We've got to ask you, favourite farm animal?
Alright, my favourite farm animal, what would it be?
It's got to be thrown in there.
I got, what's my favourite farm animal? A sheepdog.
Sheepdog.
God, yeah.
Fantastic.